Hi, and welcome to another Feature Fridays. And again, I'm joined by Mariusz Minkoff. So, Mariusz, please go ahead and introduce yourself.
Hello everyone, I'm Mariusz and I'm the product manager for VMware Cloud Director Availability. I've been driving the product roadmap for over a year now, and I'm really excited to be with you today.
Thanks a lot, Mariusz. And again, for those who don't know me, my name is Guy Bartram. I'm Product Marketing Manager for all of the vCloud Director suite of products. And today we're talking about specifically Cloud Director Availability 4.1 release, which came out, what was it, end of November. And some of the new capabilities there, we're gonna cover through some of the key capabilities in 4.1 and have a quick walk around the UI. So, Mariusz, 4.1 brings well a number of capabilities for end customers and some improvements for providers as well. If we kind of bundle up the improvements for end customers, for the actual consumers of the solution, you got really kind of three areas. The ability now to be more secure with encryption for cloud-to-cloud use cases, the improved notification mechanism with email alerts to the tenant, and lastly, multi-site authentication, so they don't have to type in their username and log on every time they switch between sites. So let's dive into. Have I missed any for before we dive into anything else?
No, not actually.
Okay, great. So let's dive into encryption then, because that's probably, I know it's one of the key requirements for customers moving to cloud and putting workloads in provider data centers. So I'm really keen to understand more about the encryption improvements.
Okay, great. Just to confirm, do you see my
Yep, yeah, we see it.
Firefox? Perfect. Okay, great. So actually, the support for encrypted storage policy is one of those features related with really solid and huge implementation in the backend without huge changes to the UI. Still, there are a few, and these are mostly reflected in the replication configuration screen. So I'm going to start configuring a new replication,
Okay.
and I'm going to select this New York cloud site. Oh, and oops, we have one of the new features just in front of us. So we need to authenticate to the remote site in order to be able to
Configure the
place
replication.
the
Yep.
replica. Yes, to configure
Yeah.
to place the replica data there, because it requires access to the data store. And the traditional ways to be just by providing username and password, but there is now a new option which we are calling multi-site authentication, and it actually allows me to just extend our session to the associated organization on the other cloud site. So here
Ah,
I'm logged as a
okay.
provider, and which is represented by the system organization. And the system organization on my current cloud site called CADC1 is associated with the destination system organization. So I just need to, I can see this in the drop down. There is only a single association between the system orgs, and I click login and proceed.
So to be clear there, traditional way was to use a local account at the target end.
Yeah.
So removing that risk now of having multiple accounts everywhere, and use a VCD site and org associations that need to be in place.
Yes,
Yeah.
exactly. And actually, this is yes, this fully works also for the tenants who are using the tenant UI.
Hmm.
And practically, the biggest convenience is just to log in into VCD, uh, get access to Cloud Director Availability from the VCD plugin, and when you hit the remote site, just use the multi-site association and get access there without using any credentials through the entire flow. And in case the VCD has been integrated with some external identity provider, which
Hmm.
is providing extra security options like multi-factor authentication, the one you mentioned
Hmm.
at the beginning, this can fully work. because before you log in into the VCD, you will be redirected through the external identity provider, pass through all their security checks. And once your session to the VCD is established, it is used for accessing the VCDA plugin, and then the VCDA on the remote side, which is the new improvement.
Cool.
The,
Cool. That's going to
this
save a
is
lot of time.
yeah, this is from first. At first, this is saving a lot of time for tenants and giving additional security. And second, it is removing a huge blocker for those providers who are entirely relying on external identity providers for their end customers, and they practically cannot use the service in the traditional way at all.
That's a
So
very good
that's
point,
a
actually. Yeah, very good point.
that's a huge difference, yes. And the next step would be to enable a similar flow from the on-premises to cloud, where you actually don't need username and password. You don't need to type anything for the daily operations, but these are required for the initial pairing.
Yeah.
And we are going to remove that requirement for providing passwords during initial pairing, and we are going to replace it with some different method.
Okay.
But
Brilliant.
let's get back to the encryption. So we have one of the changes related to disk encryption support is that we have a new column here which indicates whether our workloads are encrypted or not. And we have several non-encrypted VMs that have already been configured. I have one more which is not encrypted, but I'm going to configure it for replication now. It's currently powered on, but that really doesn't impact the replication configuration flow. And I have the same both in the VApp and in the VM view.
So this is, to be clear, this is using VMware Cloud Director exposed encrypted storage policies, which came in
Yes.
10.0, I think, which are basically the vCenter storage encryption policies. So
Yes.
you need to have vSphere 6, 7 and above, and Cloud Director, whatever version. Oh, is it 10.1?
Yeah, I think it was 10.1.
10.1. Yeah. Okay.
Okay. So the next, when we go to the next screen, we have the typical list of available organization VDCs at the destination. I'm going to choose this one. And now we see a list of all the storage policies that are available for this org VDC. And we have the DR optimized storage, high performance, and encrypted VM. Besides the names being self-explanatory, we have a separate column for encryption capability. And one of the limitations of our current implementation and the current version is that I can only choose the same type of policy at the destination as the one that was used at the source. So if my VM was encrypted at the source, I must choose an encrypted storage policy at the destination. You see, the non-encrypted ones are not available for selection here. So I need to choose the encrypted. And this is also available in the other scenario. If my source workload was not encrypted, I would have to choose one of the non-encrypted policies.
And then encrypt the workload, then redo the disaster recovery job. Yeah, okay. And also you need a shared KMS between the sites, right?
Oh yeah, that's actually one of the very important prerequisites, because we are relying on the two, both the source and the destination systems, to have access to the same encryption keys.
Yeah. Okay.
And one of the other limitations is that this feature is supported with very specific versions of vSphere and VCD. Please refer to the documentation to check the exact ones, because we are still testing and certifying additional versions. But the ones that we certified together with the initial release have been vSphere 6.7 with VCD 10.1.
Okay.
One of the other specifics is that the encryption capability requires VIPs to be deployed to the hosts, ESXi hosts. Currently, this has to be done manually, but we are going to figure out ways how to automate that in the future. That's
Yeah,
pretty much it about this one.
I think it's fair to say this is a initial kind of release of this product capability, and we're going to see much more kind of focus on this as well, right? Much more improvements as we go through.
Yes, this is definitely the let's call it the MVP of this feature, which
Yeah,
gives the capability of protecting an encrypted workload. It doesn't support encryption on the fly and all the other bells and whistles.
yeah, okay. So this gives a service provider then, because previously only data in transit was encrypted whilst it was in transit with SSL, and now we've got data in transit being encrypted and data in rest being encrypted. So
Yes,
it's an
definitely.
end-to-end encrypted solution with, as you say, right, uplift to multi-factor authentication, all of the additional bells and whistles that you'd want with a secure service. Okay.
Yes. This is. I'm confident that this is a great start. We are already getting very positive feedback from some partners. So anyone interested in using or enabling it in their environment, please do it and reach out for feedback. We are actively looking for one.
Okay.
So, Guy, which feature to go with next?
Well, I think we've covered encryption. We've also covered the multi-site authentication. The other kind of area for improvements for end customers was the eventing and
Oh
the
yeah.
ability to have email as a event mechanism now for customers.
Yes, this is actually a huge improvement, and it is a big improvement both for the end customers and for providers as well. Practically, it gives the tenant the ability to monitor the state of their applications without having to log in into the UI,
Hmm.
and uh, that's one of the big changes that we are introducing with this release. It is interesting to comment here that uh, when building the exact functionality, the requests and the feedback that we received from providers was that they wanted seamless and minimal configuration. And the best we could do around this one was to rely on the Cloud Director email configurations.
Hmm.
So practically what we are doing is that we are fetching the SMTP server details that have been configured from VCD. The only piece of information that we cannot fetch is the password because, of course, it's encrypted. And we are actually, as long as the VCD has been configured for emails, then VCDA is ready to start these notifications. And this events and notification screen is available both in the providers and in the tenant view.
Yeah.
Currently, we are seeing the provider view, which is the full view. We have 4 categories of events here. The first two available only for the providers, and providers can choose to receive information about each of these events over 3 different channels. The first one is syslog, which was available in 4.0.
Hmm.
The second one is Cloud Director Event List, which was also available in 4.0. And now we are adding Cloud Director Email. And what we have done here as an improvement is that we have defined these 4 categories and grouped the settings and configurations about the notifications to each group. So, for
Right.
example, if uh, a provider considers that daily check of the configuration health is not good enough, they can just change the interval and they can make it shorter or longer here.
And this
The same
goes
goes with.
to, sorry, this goes to when you select email, it's going to go to a predefined address, a distribution list, perhaps?
Yes, it is going to be sent to the email that has been configured for in VCD. for that org. So
Okay.
in the provider case, it is going to go to the provider email.
Yeah.
In the tenant case, it is going to go to the tenant admin email that has been configured in VCD. If there was no if there is no email configured in VCD, then this green tick is not going to be a green one, and you see a link here, go to VCD to do the configuration.
Okay. And there's a test function there as well, which obviously helps make sure it's all working fine.
Yes, yes, and actually the core benefits of the feature are around these replication monitoring events, which actually send alerts about replication errors and RPO violations. And practically, we are having three configurational properties here. The first one is how often to do to check for replication issues. The default is 5 minutes. Uh, the second property here is uh, the RPO violation threshold time. So how much to wait after RPO violation occurred before we send the event. And the third one is about how many RPO violations we want to send the alert for. The default is 0, but it could be that someone doesn't care about a single RPO violation that happens occasionally. So, and it can increase the number. It is also very relevant for service providers who probably are not interested in every single RPO violation in their system,
So
but would
zero would
probably be
be,
interested
sorry,
the
zero would
number
be,
of replications that are in violation.
yeah, is zero all or is zero not actually zero?
Zero means that if there is more than 0 replications that are in error, that are in RPO violation, send an alert.
Okay, yeah. So that's everything. Okay, so that could be very
Yes.
chatty.
Yeah, it could be very chatty, but for providers, we actually recommend it to set it to some bigger number, for
Yeah.
example, over 50. And if this threshold is reached, it means that probably something major is happening with connected tenants, or with at least one of the connected tenants, and probably they will need the provider help to resolve the situation.
Yeah. Hopefully the provider will have picked it up already from probably syslog from the system monitoring, the system management around the
Yes,
tunnels.
yes.
Mm,
Syslog is sending information about these events in Syslog format, and actually the way that I recommend for providers would be to use uh, VMware login site and
yeah.
use the content pack for VCDA to import the pre-configured queries for these events, and
Hmm.
then
Escalate.
to configure alerts
Yeah.
or forward them to some other systems if needed. It is the other good thing here is that the providers can configure these settings on behinds of tenants. So if let's say we want to configure organization Acme to receive notifications, we can check here that everything with their email is fine. They don't require SMTP authentication, so there is no need to type a password in this case. And we can quickly open these panels and change the settings. So replication monitoring events, they support both Cloud Director email and Cloud Director events. And if we don't want to uh, click them one by one, we can just use quickly
I see.
enable all and
Yeah.
go for it. Uh, whether it could be that the provider wants to let Acme to configure these settings themselves, then this is controlled by a new setting in the policies that is about event and notifications and allows settings changes or forbids them. So if
Okay.
settings changes is forbidden, then only the provider can change the settings on behalf of the tenant.
Cool. Okay. Well, let's talking about the provider. Let's switch over to the provider benefits now. And I guess one of the we've just seen the notifications for providers now being an email as well, and the ability to set policies and things like that. There is one other part within the policies that's new, isn't there? There's the enabling and disabling of migration and DR while we're here.
Oh yeah, while we are here, so let's quickly open it.
Hmm.
What we have is we have introduced a new section here about migrations, which lets provider control whether incoming, outgoing, or both type of migrations are allowed. And this is similar um, to the same with protections, only that with protections we have much more settings that are relevant there.
Yeah.
And actually, events and notifications and general limits, these are like settings and controls that are not related neither to migrations or protections. The
If you,
interesting, yep.
sorry, just if you're, because I'm just thinking service providers probably don't want to allow outgoing migrations initially in
Yeah.
any case, or necessarily outgoing protections, because you could use a protection as a migration. Um, how do you then, or are you able to, if I fail, if I fail over into a target cloud provider environment and then I fail back, is that fail back, does that count as an outgoing protection or does it not count? Is it still an incoming
Wow.
protection?
In 4.1, I believe we have changed it to not count. In
Okay.
previous versions, it was counted as an outgoing one.
Okay, so that's cool. So you could prevent outgoing full stop and a
Yes.
tenant would still be able to do test recoveries and test failovers and failing back.
Yes, on reverse, we are not changing that.
Cool.
Not checking the outgoing one.
Okay.
And actually, another interesting thing to mention here is that this default policy that ships with the product during initial installation is now clicked with migrations enabled, so that every tenant can start doing migrations without any additional configurations. And protections are disabled by default because customers first need to sign a contract and accept all the charges that will be related to it.
Sure. Makes sense. Okay. So there's a lot more control around the capabilities and the offerings that a provider can expose. Um, what about the actual resiliency of the service now, in terms of being able to do backups and restores? That was another item in 4.1 that was, well, new, right?
Yeah, that's actually something that's completely new. I've met a lot of people who believe that taking a snapshot of the replication appliances, VCDA, different VCDA appliances, is good enough protection in case something happens. Unfortunately, this is not exactly the case
Mm.
because we have multiple components with different states, and
Consistency is the problem, right?
the
Mm.
consistency is definitely a problem because the replication you can restore to an older um, version of the replication appliance, but it will not know the latest information about any replications that have been configured recently or any replica instances that have been created.
Yeah.
So practically, we are now making a backup of all replication of all appliances in VCDA. Everything is orchestrated from this single UI where you can generate a new backup. You have to set a secure password.
And this is for encrypting the actual backup archive, right?
Yes, this is for encrypting the backup archive, which consists of tunnel service, replicator services, and cloud service. And once you create the backup archive, it is something that's created fairly quickly. So
Mm.
in this environment, I don't have hundreds of replications. I have like a total of around 8 or 10.
But to be
But
clear, it's not backing up the replicants, it's backing up the configuration of the replications.
yes, it is.
Yeah,
It is backing up the configuration of the replications. It is backing up the information when the latest replicas have been created and what has been their size and placement and everything. But the replica data itself, it lives on the destination data store, which is not being backed up as part of this procedure.
sure. Okay.
So once we have our backup archive, we need to store it at a safe place. one of the options is to just download the file, which is going to be saved in a full archive, which contains information about the date when the backup was done and the exact name and version of the site.
Hmm.
Practically, we have we are not recommending to everyone to do not expecting everyone to do backups regularly um, from this UI. That's why we have exposed this functionality from the public API. So you can call the APIs from a script on your dedicated to backups machine and then place the files to whatever location you consider safe. It is
Okay.
important to note a few limitations. The first one is that when you are restoring, you need uh, newly deployed appliances with the same networking as the original ones, and you need to have the same version of VCDA as a restore. You can restore only to the same version of VCDA. So if this was 4.1.0, these backups will work only on 4.1.0 version of the appliances.
Okay, that's important to note. So this is um, basically restoring to a replica environment.
Yes, yes.
Yeah. Okay. So this can be automated. Should be a task that is done um, pre upgrades, obviously, pre any changes to the systems, and yeah.
Yes,
Okay.
definitely, most definitely before any upgrade, before any major maintenance operation,
Hmm.
like adding a new replication, repairing sites, changing a lot of certificates,
Yeah.
and anything else dangerous.
Okay. Okay. So that's migration and DR. And I think there's one more kind of place to look at while we're in sort of the management area, which was the initial configuration, which previously, I mean, I remember doing the install last time I did it, we had about 5 different appliances to configure, 5 different UIs, and a whole load of configuration information that had to be identical in a lot of them. That's now all gone away, hasn't it?
Oh yeah, definitely. This is really great news for a lot of people. Practically, in the past, we had a pretty strict and descriptive procedure, which was counterintuitive for most of us.
Hmm.
You had to configure services in a very specific order and create relationships between them again in a very specific order. Otherwise, you risk getting into a state where you are hitting errors and you cannot proceed, and you are like kind of stuck in a loop.
Hmm.
So practically now we are enabling all configurations from a single interface. This is the initial wizard of the cloud service. As long as you can provide the addresses of where the other appliances have been deployed, it will call their APIs and orchestrate all configurations from a single wizard.
So is that wizard deployed as a separate appliance, or is this a part of your sort of first appliance, your cloud service appliance?
It is part of the Cloud Replication Management appliance,
Right.
which is hosting the cloud service and the manager service. And once you initially deploy the appliance and open the initial screen, when you the link which is encouraging you to do the initial configuration will open this new wizard.
Okay. Okay.
The good news is that the old APIs still work.
Mm.
So if you have any kind of automation, it will keep working as it was.
Okay. And this is only for your service provider footprints, right? This is not for your tenant footprints, which are pretty
Yeah,
highly automated, I guess.
with a tenant, we have a single appliance and a
Yeah.
single wizard, so it really cannot go much simpler than that.
Brilliant. Well, be surprised how many people can still get that wrong. All right, so that's great, Marish. I think, is there any other key features in 4.1 that I've missed?
Well, I don't think so. We covered the notifications,
I think
the
there was some
backup and
general
restore.
UI improvements
Oh yeah,
around.
about the UI, we are making tweaks and improvements with
Yeah,
every new release. With this one, the changes are that this reorganized navigation screen, which we find more convenient and more space efficient. So instead of having all those submenus, like for example the resources, they expanded into a couple of submenus for providers and for by provider and by org. So you can now switch these as tabs. Also, the incoming and outgoing replications are single screens that
yeah,
show information about all sites, regardless if these are on-premise sites or cloud sites. And when you check the source site drop down, you see that we have our own site because we are supporting replication to self. We see the connected cloud sites and we see the connected tenant sites. These are all available in the peer site list in case you are not sure which one is what. You can easily see them here.
and likewise with continual improvements, we also see some continual improvements in the API and some more sort of public APIs being exposed and some examples now.
Yes, we have. We actually have a new um, a new API guide which is more descriptive with pretty good explanations about I can try to quickly show it. It contains very detailed explanation about every parameter, and it also contains some examples about how to get the specific use cases completed. So on every appliance that we have deployed, when we go to slash docs slash API guide
You got an equal sign.
HTML. Yeah, I have an equal site.
There you go.
Okay, so here it is, and you can see that it is pretty descriptive with all the information. So, for example, if we go to request structure of a particular call, we see that every parameter has been
Oh, nice.
described
Yeah,
and explained. That would be a huge improvement and is going to eliminate a lot of guesswork.
yeah, yeah. There you go. So if you're a developer, go get started on this, get your teeth into the guide, and start automating. Brilliant.
Yes,
Well, listen, Marish, I think 4.1's been, as far as I'm concerned, there's a number of real key improvements there. Really glad to see encryption covered and some of the usability improvements and notification improvements, and actually particularly the API improvements. I think that's going to really help as well. Thank you very much, Marish. Really appreciate your time today, and yeah, look forward to the next version.
thank you so much. It was a great pleasure for me. Thanks for organizing this guy and thanks for inviting me.